Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the space station orbiting Earth. The coffee in his cup had gone cold hours ago, but he didn't notice. His eyes were fixed on the strange signal that had arrived through their deep space communication array. The message was unlike anything humanity had ever received before. The transmission came from somewhere beyond their solar system. It spoke of an empire that ruled many worlds and commanded dozens of alien species. The voice that delivered the message was cold and mechanical, translated by computers into broken English that still carried an unmistakable tone of superiority. "People of Earth," the message began, "you have been chosen by the great Zaltharian Empire for inclusion in our domain. Your world contains resources we require. Your species will serve our purposes. You have 7 of your days to surrender without resistance. Comply, and some of you will be permitted to live. Resist, and your entire world will be destroyed." Jake replayed the message for the 5th time. Each word hit him like a punch to the stomach. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it was terrifying. The door to his command center slid open. Colonel Amy Phillips walked in, her face pale. She had been monitoring communications from Earth's surface for the past hour. "Sir, the message is spreading. Every government on Earth received the same transmission. The President has called an emergency meeting." Jake nodded slowly. "What do we know about these Zaltharians?" Amy consulted her tablet. "Our computers analyzed the signal. It came from a location approximately 40 light-years away. The technology required to send a message across that distance is far beyond anything we possess. If they can communicate across space like that, their weapons must be incredibly advanced." Down on Earth, President Lisa Carter sat in the Situation Room beneath the White House. The room was filled with the most important people in the country. General Ryan Brooks, the head of Earth's combined military forces, looked grim as he reviewed reports from around the world. "The panic is starting," General Brooks said. "Major cities are seeing people flee to the countryside. Stock markets have crashed. Some governments are already talking about surrender." President Carter rubbed her temples. "What are our options, General?" Brooks opened a file on the table. "Honestly, Madam President, they're limited. Our most powerful weapons are nuclear missiles. Our fastest ships can barely reach Mars in a reasonable time. If these aliens can travel between star systems, they're centuries ahead of us in technology." Dr. Kevin Hughes, Earth's leading expert on the possibility of alien life, spoke up from the corner of the room. "I've been studying the message structure and language patterns. The Zaltharians don't see us as equals. In their internal communications, they refer to humans as the local fauna and primitive specimens. They expect zero resistance." "What do you mean by internal communications?" President Carter asked. Dr. Hughes pulled up a screen. "Their message contained background data that they didn't think we could decode. It includes planning documents and strategic assessments. They're not just threatening us, they're already dividing up our planet's resources among their different species." The president felt a chill run down her spine. "They're that confident?" "According to their plans, they intend to keep about 10 million humans alive as curiosities and research subjects. The rest of our population is considered expendable. They plan to strip mine our continents and relocate our oceans to desert worlds in their empire." General Brooks slammed his fist on the table. 7 billion people reduced to 10 million slaves. We can't let that happen. "What can we do?" "President," Carter asked, "if their technology is so advanced, how do we fight back?" The general looked around the room, then leaned forward. "There is something. A project that's been classified above top secret for 20 years. We call it the Cerberus Protocol." Dr. Hughes raised an eyebrow. "I've never heard of any Cerberus Protocol. That's because only 12 people on Earth know it exists," Brooks replied. "After we detected the first radio signals that suggested intelligent life might exist beyond Earth, a group of military planners began asking a simple question. What if they're hostile?" President Carter leaned back in her chair. "Go on. The Cerberus Protocol is based on a basic principle. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. While publicly we've focused on peaceful space exploration, Secretly, we've been preparing for the day we might meet enemies among the stars. Brooks activated a secure communication device. Commander Phillips, are you receiving this transmission? Amy's voice came through clearly from the space station. Yes, General. Captain Morrison is here with me. Commander, I'm authorizing activation of Cerberus Protocol Level 1. Do you understand? There was a pause. Amy's voice, when it came back, was steady but tense. Understood, General. Beginning activation sequence now. President Carter looked confused. What exactly is the Cerberus Protocol? General Brooks stood up. For the past 20 years, every major construction project on Earth has had a secondary purpose. Mining operations, weather stations, research facilities, even some civilian buildings have been designed with hidden defensive capabilities. We've been turning Earth into a fortress without anyone knowing it. Dr. Hughes stared at the general. That's impossible. A project that large couldn't be kept secret. It could if it was spread across hundreds of smaller projects and if each team only knew their small part of the larger plan, Brooks replied. The miners thought they were digging for rare earth metals. The engineers thought they were building communication arrays. The scientists thought they were conducting atmospheric research. None of them knew they were actually building humanity's last line of defense. Back on the space station, Jake Morrison received a priority message on his personal terminal. The message contained coordinates and access codes he had memorized years ago, but hoped he would never need to use. His hands shook slightly as he entered the codes. Amy, he called to his second in command. Patch me through to the Zaltharian fleet. Sir, they're still 40 light-years away. It will take years for any message to reach them. Jake smiled grimly. Not with the equipment we're about to activate. The Zaltharians aren't the only ones with advanced communication technology. As Amy worked to establish the connection, Jake composed humanity's response. It would be brief, simple, and absolutely final. When the connection was established, he spoke clearly into the microphone. This is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth Defense, Command, responding to your ultimatum. You have made a mistake. You have encountered humanity at our most peaceful moment. We suggest you reconsider your position and withdraw from our solar system. This is your only warning. Do not test our resolve. The message was sent instantly across 40 light-years of space, using technology that officially didn't exist. Jake leaned back in his chair and waited for the response that would determine the fate of both species. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Edge. The massive ship was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons that could crack planets in half. Around him, 300 warships moved through space in perfect formation. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a moon. The admiral was a member of the Zaltharian ruling class. His people had evolved from the apex predators of their homeworld. They were tall, with thick scales that shimmered like dark metal and eyes that could see in multiple light spectrums. For over 1,000 years, they had been conquering other worlds. Admiral, his communications officer reported, we received a response from the humans. Kethvar's mouth twisted into what passed for a smile among his people. Play it. The human message was short and simple. A single voice, calm and steady, delivered what sounded like a warning. The admiral and his officers listened, then broke into harsh laughter. They warn us, Kethvar said, his voice filled with amusement. A species that has barely left their own planet dares to warn the Zaltharian Empire? His science officer, a thin creature with 6 arms, looked up from his instruments. Admiral, there are some unusual readings coming from their solar system. Energy signatures that don't match their known technology. Kethvar waved a dismissive hand. Probably primitive. Attempts to look threatening. Continue our approach. On Earth, the true scope of human preparation was beginning to unfold. Commander Amy Phillips sat in a room that officially didn't exist, buried 3 miles beneath the Colorado mountains. The Cerberus Command Center was built inside a natural cave system, reinforced with materials that could survive a direct nuclear strike. Around her, dozens of technicians worked at stations that monitored hidden installations around the globe. Each screen showed a different location, but they all shared one thing in common. They were coming online for the first time in 20 years. Status report, Amy called out. Australian site is fully operational, came the first response. Canadian installation reports ready. Siberian facility is at 90% power. Dr. Sandra Hayes, the chief architect of Earth's hidden defenses, walked up to Amy's station. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. For 2 decades, she had carried the weight of humanity's greatest secret. Commander, Dr. Hayes said, I need to brief you on what we're really dealing with here. Amy looked up from her screens. What do you mean? Dr. Hayes pulled up a holographic display that showed Earth from space. Red dots appeared across the planet's surface, in the oceans, and even on the moon. There were hundreds of them. Every red dot represents a hidden installation, Dr. Hayes explained. Mining operations that were really building underground weapon platforms. Weather stations that were actually constructing energy collectors. Research facilities that were developing technology we officially don't possess. Amy stared at the display. How is this possible? A project this large should have been impossible to hide. It was hidden in plain sight, Dr. Hayes replied. We learned from our own history. During World War II, the Manhattan Project employed over 100,000 people, but most of them didn't know they were building atomic bombs. They thought they were working on separate, smaller projects. She pointed to a cluster of red dots in the Pacific Ocean. Those underwater installations were built by teams that thought they were creating deep-sea research stations. The workers on the moon believed they were establishing mining operations. Each group only knew their small part of the larger plan. What exactly are we dealing with? Amy asked. Dr. Hayes smiled for the first time in weeks. We're dealing with 20 years of human paranoia, ingenuity, and preparation. Every major government on Earth contributed to this project. We pooled our resources, our best minds, and our determination to ensure that humanity would never be caught helpless. On the space station, Captain Jake Morrison watched as systems he had never seen before came online. Panels slid open to reveal controls that weren't in any manual. His communications array suddenly had capabilities that shouldn't exist. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving data streams from locations all over Earth. The traffic is enormous. Jake nodded. Patch me through to the lunar installations. Sir, we don't have any installations on the moon. We do now, Jake replied. Use access code Cerberus 77 Alpha. The communications officer's face went pale as new channels opened on his board. Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the lunar surface. How is this possible? Because humanity has been preparing for this day since we first looked up at the stars, Jake said quietly. On the moon, Commander Pete Jackson had been living in the hidden lunar facility for 5 years. He and his team of 50 specialists had been maintaining and improving the installation, waiting for the day it would be needed. That day had finally come. All stations report ready, Pete announced to his team. Begin charging the primary systems. The lunar surface began to change. What had appeared to be natural rock formations started to move. Massive structures rose from beneath the regolith, revealing themselves as the most sophisticated defensive platforms ever built by human hands. Back on Earth, Dr. Kevin Hughes made a discovery that changed everything. He had been studying the Zaltharian communications and their military records. What he found made him call President Carter immediately. Madam President, Dr. Hughes said, I've analyzed the Zaltharian conquest records. They've conquered over 200 worlds. But there's a pattern. Every species they've defeated developed intelligence through different evolutionary paths than humans. What do you mean? The president asked. Some species evolved intelligence through tool use, others through social cooperation or environmental adaptation. But humans are different. We're the first species they've encountered that evolved from persistence hunters. President Carter frowned. Explain that. Early humans hunted by chasing prey over long distances until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. We developed intelligence while remaining predators. Every other species the Zaltharians conquered gave up fighting when they realized they were outmatched. But humans have never learned to give up. Dr. Hughes pulled up more data. There's something else. The Zoltharians have been the dominant species in their empire for so long that they've grown soft. They expect easy victories. They've never faced a species that fights back with intelligence, determination, and desperation. Meanwhile, the Zoltharian fleet continued its approach toward Earth. Admiral Kethvar reviewed the tactical data with growing confidence. The humans had a few primitive space installations and some basic weapons. It would be the easiest conquest in the Empire's history. "Sir," his sensor operator reported, "I'm detecting some unusual energy readings from the human solar system. The patterns don't match anything in our databases." Kethvar barely glanced at the reports. "Probably malfunctioning equipment. A species that primitive couldn't possess technology we don't recognize. But sir, the energy signatures are getting stronger, and they're coming from multiple locations throughout their system." The Admiral finally looked at the sensor data. What he saw made him pause. The energy readings were indeed unusual, but more troubling was their coordination. The signatures were synchronized across impossible distances, suggesting a level of organization that shouldn't exist. "Intensify our scans," he ordered, "and prepare the fleet for immediate combat deployment." As the Zoltharian fleet drew closer to Earth's solar system, both sides prepared for a confrontation that would determine the fate of humanity. The aliens expected an easy victory over a primitive species. The humans were about to show them the price of underestimating a species that had spent its entire existence learning how to fight, survive, and protect what was theirs. Admiral Kethvar decided to make an example of human weakness. He would destroy their moon first, showing them the futility of resistance. The sight of their satellite being obliterated would surely break their spirit and force immediate surrender. "Target the moon," he commanded from his flagship's bridge. "Full plasma bombardment. I want it reduced to debris within the hour." 12 of his most powerful warships moved into position, their plasma cannons charged with energy that could melt through solid rock like butter. The weapons that had cracked the defenses of countless worlds now focused on Earth's natural satellite. The first salvo launched across space in brilliant streams of superheated plasma. The energy beams struck the lunar surface with the force of 1,000 nuclear weapons. Admiral Kethvar watched his tactical display, expecting to see the moon begin breaking apart. Instead, something impossible happened. The lunar surface absorbed the plasma energy without any visible damage. Then, as the Admiral and his crew watched in growing amazement, massive structures began rising from beneath the moon's surface. What humanity had claimed were simple mining operations revealed themselves as the most sophisticated defensive installations ever built. "That's impossible," Kethvar whispered. "Our sensors showed no defensive installations on that moon." His science officer worked frantically at his instruments. "Admiral, the structures were buried beneath hundreds of meters of natural rock. They used the rock as camouflage. Our scans couldn't penetrate that deeply." On the moon, Commander Pete, Jackson felt the vibration of the plasma impacts through the walls of his command center. He had been waiting 5 years for this moment. Now it was time to show the galaxy what humans could accomplish when they put their minds to it. "All defense platforms are online," his weapons officer reported. "Energy collectors are at full charge." Pete smiled grimly. "Return fire. Let them know we're here." The lunar defense platforms unleashed their first response. Beams of pure energy, powered by fusion reactors that had been secretly built over 20 years, struck back at the Zoltharian ships. The alien shields, which had never been penetrated, began to flicker and fail under the unexpected assault. General Ryan Brooks watched the battle from Earth's command center. The tactical display showed something that military historians would study for centuries. For the first time in over 1,000 years, Zoltharian ships were taking damage in combat. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving priority signals from installations worldwide. All defensive positions report ready for activation." Brooks nodded. "Begin Phase 2 of Cerberus Protocol. It's time to show them what Earth is really capable of." Across the planet, installations that had been disguised for decades began revealing their true purpose. In the Australian outback, what appeared to be a solar energy farm transformed into a massive directed energy weapon. Deep in the Siberian wilderness, a weather research station opened to reveal gravitational manipulation equipment that shouldn't exist. Dr. Sandra Hayes monitored the activation from the Colorado Command Center. Every red dot on her display was coming online, creating a defensive network that spanned the entire planet. The project she had spent her life building was finally being put to the test. "Commander Phillips," she called out, "begin linking all installations through the quantum network." Amy looked up from her console. "Quantum network? That technology is still theoretical." Dr. Hayes smiled. "Not anymore. We've had working quantum entanglement communication for 15 years. Every defensive installation on Earth is connected at the quantum level. They can coordinate instantaneously across any distance." The implications hit Amy immediately. "You're saying our entire defense grid operates as a single system?" "Exactly. Every weapon, every shield generator, every sensor array is part of one massive defensive organism. We can share power, coordinate attacks, and adapt to threats faster than any conventional military system." Admiral Kethvar watched his tactical display with growing alarm. The human defensive response was unlike anything in Zaltharian military records. Their weapons were appearing from locations that had shown no military activity. Their coordination was perfect, suggesting a level of communication technology that rivaled the Empire's own capabilities. "Sir," his fleet commander reported, "3 of our ships have sustained heavy damage. The humans are using weapons we don't recognize." "What do you mean?" Kethvar demanded. "Their energy weapons are somehow redirecting our own plasma back at us. Our gravitational sensors are detecting massive distortions around their planet, and they seem to be drawing power from their own star." The Admiral stared at the reports. "Drawing power from their star? That's impossible for a primitive species." "Nevertheless, sir, that appears to be what's happening. They've somehow built energy collectors within their star's corona. The power output is enormous." Captain Jake Morrison coordinated Earth's orbital defense from his space station. Around him, hidden systems that had been built into the station's structure over many years were finally revealing themselves. Weapon ports opened in walls he had thought were solid. His navigation array suddenly showed defensive platforms throughout the solar system that hadn't existed on any official records. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're receiving targeting data from installations throughout the system. They want us to coordinate a combined strike on the alien flagship." Jake studied the battle display. The Zaltharian fleet was powerful, but they were fighting a war they didn't understand against an enemy they had completely misjudged. "Coordinate with all defensive installations. Target their command ship." "Aye, sir. Linking with lunar platforms, Earth-based installations, and the asteroid belt defense grid." Jake paused. "Asteroid belt defense grid?" "Sir, apparently we've had hidden weapons platforms in the asteroid belt for over a decade. They're coming online now." The scope of humanity's preparation was staggering. For 20 years, every major space mission had carried hidden cargo. Every asteroid mining operation had left behind defensive installations. Every research probe had been equipped with weapons that could be activated when needed. Dr. Kevin Hughes made another disturbing discovery about their enemies. "President Carter," he reported, "I've analyzed more of their military records. The Zaltharians haven't fought a real war in over 300 years. All their recent conquests have been against species that surrendered immediately when faced with superior technology." "What does that mean for us?" the president asked. "It means they have no experience fighting an enemy that refuses to give up. Their entire military doctrine is based on intimidation and overwhelming technological superiority. They don't know how to adapt when those tactics fail." President Carter looked at the tactical displays showing the battle raging around Earth's moon. "And we're not giving up." "No, Madam President. We're doing what humans have always done when faced with extinction. We're fighting back with everything we have." The battle continued to rage as both sides realized they had fundamentally misunderstood each other. The Zaltharians had expected to face a primitive species with basic weapons and no coordination. Instead, they found themselves fighting a defensive network that spanned an entire solar system and operated with a level of sophistication that challenged their own technology. Admiral Kethvar made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Instead of withdrawing to reassess the situation, he ordered his entire fleet to attack. 300 warships moved toward Earth, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a city. If intimidation won't work, he declared, then we'll destroy them completely. No more warnings, no more demonstrations. Full assault on their homeworld. Commander Amy Phillips watched the alien fleets approach on her screens. All stations, this is Cerberus Command. The enemy has committed to full attack. Authorization code Alpha 77. Release all restrictions on defensive systems. Across Earth, on the Moon, and throughout the solar system, the final safety protocols were removed from humanity's hidden weapons. The true test of 20 years of secret preparation was about to begin. The line had been drawn. Humanity would either prove that intelligence, determination, and refusal to surrender could overcome technological superiority, or they would be wiped from existence. There would be no middle ground. The full Zoltharian assault began with a fury that had destroyed hundreds of worlds. 300 warships unleashed their plasma cannons simultaneously, sending waves of superheated energy toward Earth. The attack was designed to overwhelm any possible defense and reduce the planet to molten rock within hours. Admiral Kethvar watched from his flagship as the massive energy barrage crossed space. He had used this same tactic to break the resistance of countless species. No planetary defense had ever survived such concentrated firepower, but as the plasma waves approached Earth, something extraordinary happened. The energy didn't strike the planet's surface. Instead, it hit invisible barriers that surrounded Earth like a protective shell. The plasma beams bent and twisted, redirected by gravitational fields that wrapped around the planet like armor. Impossible, Kethvar whispered. No species has ever developed planetary-scale gravitational manipulation. His science officer worked frantically at his console. Admiral, they're not just deflecting our weapons. They're redirecting the energy back at our own ships. The Admiral watched in horror as his own plasma fire turned back toward his fleet. Ships that had never taken damage in centuries of warfare suddenly found themselves under attack by their own weapons. Shields that had never failed began to buckle under the unexpected assault. Captain Jake Morrison coordinated the defense from his space station. But now he understood that his station was just one small part of a much larger system. Hidden installations throughout the solar system were working together with perfect coordination, sharing information and energy instantaneously. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving tactical data from Jupiter. Jupiter? Jake asked, confused. Yes, sir. Apparently, we've had energy collection stations hidden in Jupiter's atmosphere for 12 years. They're feeding power to the planetary defense grid. Jake stared at his tactical display as more hidden installations revealed themselves. Saturn's rings contained weapons platforms disguised as research probes. The gas giant's massive gravitational field had been hiding human technology for over a decade. Commander Janet Pierce led a squadron of Earth's fastest ships in attacks that confused and frustrated the Zoltharian forces. Her ships were smaller and less powerful than the alien vessels, but they moved in patterns that the enemy couldn't predict or counter. Blue Squadron, execute pattern Delta 7, she commanded over the radio. Her 12 ships scattered in different directions, then suddenly converged on a single Zoltharian cruiser from multiple angles. The alien ship's weapons could only target one direction at a time, leaving it vulnerable to attacks from behind and below. How do they coordinate so perfectly? The Zoltharian captain asked his crew, as human ships swarmed around his vessel like angry hornets. The answer lay in humanity's greatest advantage. Every human pilot was trained to think independently while working as part of a team. The Zoltharians, despite their advanced technology, followed rigid military protocols that couldn't adapt quickly to unexpected tactics. Dr. Sandra Hayes activated the most classified aspect of the Cerberus protocol from her command center, deep beneath Colorado. Her fingers moved across controls that had been theoretical when the project began 20 years ago. Quantum Displacement Network is online, she announced to Commander Amy Phillips. All defensive installations are now operating as a single, coordinated system. Amy watched as the tactical display changed. Every red dot representing a hidden installation was now connected by lines of light. The entire planet's defense network was linked at the quantum level, allowing instantaneous communication and energy sharing across impossible distances. "Dr. Hayes," Amy said, "this technology shouldn't exist. Quantum entanglement on this scale should be impossible." "It was impossible 20 years ago," Dr. Hayes replied. "But when you're preparing to defend your entire species, you find ways to make the impossible work." The quantum network allowed Earth's defenses to operate like a living organism. When Zaltharian ships attacked one installation, others immediately provided support. When energy was needed in one location, it was instantly transferred from installations around the globe. Admiral Kethvar received damage reports that should have been impossible. His fleet wasn't just being repelled by primitive humans. It was being systematically dismantled by weapons and tactics that shouldn't exist. "Sir," his fleet commander reported, "we've lost 47 ships. The humans are using coordinated attacks that seem to anticipate our every move." "How can they predict our tactics?" Kethvar demanded. "Sir, I believe they're not predicting us. They're adapting faster than we can change our approach. Their defensive network learns from each attack and immediately shares that information with every other installation." Emperor Vexthul, ruler of the Zaltharian Empire, received battle reports from his flagship orbiting a distant world. What he read made his blood run cold. His most powerful fleet, led by his best admiral, was being defeated by a single planet. "This is impossible," he declared to his council. "The humans were supposed to be primitive. They barely have space travel." His military advisor, a scarred veteran of dozens of conquests, studied the reports with growing concern. "My Emperor, it appears we have made a fundamental error in our assessment. The humans were never as primitive as we believed." "What do you mean?" "They allowed us to see only what they wanted us to see. While we observed their peaceful space exploration and scientific research, they were secretly building the most sophisticated planetary defense system ever created." On Earth, President Lisa Carter watched the battle from the Situation Room. The displays showed something that would have seemed like science fiction just days ago. Humanity was not only surviving an attack by a galactic empire, they were winning. "General Brooks," she asked, "how is this possible? How did we build all of this without anyone knowing?" General Brooks pointed to the tactical display. "Madam President, this represents the greatest cooperative effort in human history. Every major nation contributed resources, technology, and personnel. We kept it secret by making it look like separate, harmless projects. But the technology involved is beyond anything we publicly possess. That's because our best scientists have been working on theoretical problems for decades, knowing that someday we might need practical applications. When you're preparing to defend your entire species, you don't worry about patents or publication credits." Dr. Kevin Hughes made another crucial discovery about their enemies. "The Zaltharians have a fatal weakness," he announced to the command staff. "They've been the dominant species for so long that they've forgotten how to fight equals." "Explain," President Carter ordered. "Every species they've conquered surrendered when faced with superior technology. The Zaltharians have no experience fighting an enemy that matches their capabilities. Their entire military doctrine assumes technological superiority. And we're matching their technology? In some ways, we're exceeding it. They developed their technology for conquest and intimidation. We developed ours for survival and defense. When you're fighting for your life, you find solutions that others never consider." The battle raged for hours, but the tide had clearly turned. Zaltharian ships that had never been damaged in centuries of warfare were being destroyed by weapons that had been hidden beneath Earth's surface. The Empire's most powerful fleet was being defeated by a species they had dismissed as primitive animals. Admiral Kethvar made one final desperate decision. If he couldn't defeat the human defenses, he would try to escape and warn the Empire. But when he ordered his remaining ships to retreat, he discovered that human vessels had positioned themselves to block every escape route. Commander Janet Pierce's voice came over the radio from her fighter squadron. "Zaltharian fleet, you are surrounded. Your retreat routes are blocked. Surrender now or face complete destruction." The hunter had become the hunted. The species that had conquered hundreds of worlds now found itself trapped by the very people They had come to enslave. Humanity had shown the galaxy that technological superiority meant nothing without the will to use it properly, and that underestimating a species that had spent its entire existence learning to fight was the deadliest mistake an empire could make. Captain Jake Morrison activated the final phase of humanity's defense system. The Solar Collection Array, massive installations that had been hidden within the sun's corona for 15 years, began channeling stellar energy through Earth's quantum network. The collected power was beyond anything the Zoltharians had ever encountered. All stations, Jake announced across the communication network, prepare for coordinated strike on remaining enemy vessels. Use maximum power settings. The response was immediate and devastating. Energy beams powered by the sun itself lanced out from installations across the solar system. The remaining Zoltharian ships found themselves facing weapons that drew power from a star. Their shields, which had protected them for centuries, simply evaporated under the assault. Admiral Kethvar watched his fleet die around him. Ships that had been the pride of the Empire were being cut apart by beams of pure stellar energy. His flagship shuddered as its shields failed and hull plating began to melt. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "the humans are transmitting on all frequencies." "Put it through," Kethvar ordered, his voice hollow with defeat. Commander Amy Phillips spoke from the Cerberus Command Center, her words broadcast to every surviving Zoltharian ship and transmitted across space to the Empire itself. "This is Commander Amy Phillips of Earth Defense Command. Your invasion has failed. Your fleet is defeated. You will now listen to humanity's final message." The transmission switched to Captain Jake Morrison aboard his space station. His voice was calm, but carried the weight of absolute authority. "To the Zoltharian Empire and any other species listening to this broadcast, understand what has happened here today. You came to our world believing us to be weak and defenseless. You plan to enslave our people and strip our planet of resources." Jake paused, letting his words sink in across the galaxy. "You were wrong about humanity. We are not the primitive species you believed us to be. For 20 years we have been preparing for this day. Every peaceful gesture, every scientific mission, every expression of goodwill masked the greatest defensive undertaking in galactic history." Dr. Sandra Hayes took over the transmission from her underground command center. "We offered you peace and cooperation. We would have welcomed you as friends and trading partners. Instead, you chose to see us as prey. That was your mistake." The message continued as President Lisa Carter spoke from the White House Situation Room. "Let this serve as notice to every species in the galaxy. Earth is under the protection of humanity. We will defend what is ours with every resource at our disposal. Any future aggression against our world or our people will be met with escalating response." Admiral Kethvar realized that his career, his fleet, and possibly his life were over. The greatest military force in galactic history had been destroyed by a species the Empire had dismissed as animals. He activated his personal communicator and sent a message to Emperor Vexthul. "My Emperor," he transmitted, "the invasion has failed completely. The humans were never primitive. They have been preparing for interstellar warfare for decades. Their technology matches or exceeds our own. I recommend immediate withdrawal of all forces and reconsideration of our expansion policies." The response from the Emperor was swift and filled with rage. "Impossible. No single planet could defeat the Imperial fleet." "Nevertheless, my Emperor, it has happened. The humans have turned their entire solar system into a fortress. They fight with coordination and determination we have never encountered. They refuse to surrender even when facing impossible odds. On Earth, the aftermath of the battle began to reshape everything. Dr. Kevin Hughes analyzed the defeated alien fleet and made discoveries that would revolutionize human technology. The Zoltharian ships contained scientific databases that revealed the locations of hundreds of worlds and dozens of intelligent species. "President Carter," Dr. Hughes reported, "we now have access to star maps showing the entire local galaxy. We know where every major civilization is located and have detailed information about their capabilities." President Carter studied the data with growing amazement. "What does this mean for humanity?" "It means we're no longer isolated. We know where our neighbors are, and more importantly, they now know about us. The galaxy has changed forever. General, Ryan Brooks coordinated the capture of surviving Zaltharian vessels. The alien crews, once proud conquerors, now found themselves prisoners of the species they had come to enslave. Many were too shocked to resist, unable to comprehend how their mighty empire had been defeated by a single world. "What do we do with them?" Brooks asked President Carter. "We treat them according to the Geneva Convention," she replied. "We're not conquerors like them, we're defenders. But we keep their technology and learn everything we can about their empire." News of the defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light through the Zaltharian communication network. On dozens of worlds, species that had been conquered by the Empire began to whisper about rebellion. If humans could defeat the mighty Zaltharian fleet, perhaps freedom was possible for others. Emperor Vexthul faced the greatest crisis in his empire's history. The fleet that had been sent to conquer a primitive world had been completely destroyed. Worse, the humans had broadcast their victory message across the galaxy, encouraging every enslaved species to consider resistance. "My emperor," his military advisor reported, "We're receiving reports of uprisings on 12 worlds. The humans' message has inspired rebellions throughout the empire. One planet has destroyed our greatest fleet and encouraged rebellion across our domain," the emperor said, his voice filled with disbelief. "How is this possible?" "Because, my emperor, we made the same mistake we've made with every conquest. We assumed that technology alone determines victory. The humans have shown us that determination, intelligence, and refusal to surrender can overcome any technological advantage." Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of his space station, watching the debris of the Zaltharian fleet drift through space. Earth's defensive installations remained active, ready to repel any future attacks. But something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. Dr. Sandra Hayes joined him at the viewport. 20 years of work," she said quietly. 20 years of secret preparation and hidden construction. It all came down to proving that humanity deserves its place among the stars. "And we proved it," Jake replied. "But now what? We can't go back to pretending we're a peaceful, primitive species." "We don't have to," Dr. Hayes said. "The galaxy knows about us now. They know we're here, and they know we're not going anywhere. Commander, Amy Phillips broadcast the final message from Earth to the galaxy. This is Earth Defense Command to all listening civilizations. Humanity extends an offer of friendship and cooperation to any species willing to treat us as equals. We seek peace, trade, and mutual understanding." She paused, then continued with steel in her voice. "But let this battle serve as a warning. We will not be conquered. We will not be enslaved. We will not be destroyed. Any species that threatens humanity or our allies will face the full force of our defensive capabilities. Earth has spoken. The galaxy has been warned. Choose your response wisely." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy to contemplate a new reality. A species that had seemed primitive and helpless had revealed itself to be one of the most formidable civilizations ever encountered. The balance of power had shifted, and nothing would ever be the same. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, not as conquerors but as defenders who had proven they would fight for their freedom, with intelligence, determination, and technology that could challenge any empire. The galaxy now knew that Earth was protected by a species that never learned to surrender, and that lesson would reshape interstellar politics for generations to come.